welcome back to Momma Drama and Trauma. I'm your host, Jenny Kimmel. If you've been here for a while, then you already know. We've been walking through this story month by month. One heartbreak, one hard decision, one healing moment at a time. 9 months ago, I found out the truth that shattered the life I thought I had. And every month since has been its own chapter of trying to survive, trying to make sense of it all, and trying somehow to rebuild a life out of the ashes. But this month, April, felt different. This was the month where something shifted, not because everything got easier, far from it. This was the month mediation dragged on and on. This was the month where I had to face the harsh reality that I wouldn't wake up to my boys every single Christmas morning. This was the month where dividing holidays, dividing time, dividing everything we built became real. And somehow in the middle of that, I did something bold. I went on my first date in 25 years. So yeah, this episode is going to take you through all of it. The fighting, the fear, the paperwork, the parenting plans, the awkward first date energy, the rebuilding, the self-doubt, and the moments where I started to whisper to myself, maybe I really am going to be okay. This is the 9th month. This is April 2024. This is liberation and learning to let go. If I had to choose one word, if I had to sum up April in one word, liberating, but not in some sunshine and rainbows kind of way. Not like I suddenly woke up happy and free and healed. No, it was more subtle than that, more earned than that. It was liberating because I was doing something I hadn't done in a long time. I was doing something for me. I had enrolled in real estate classes, and it might not sound like much to someone else, but for me, that was huge. It was the first thing I'd done in years that wasn't about us. It wasn't about keeping the house running. It wasn't about keeping the peace. It wasn't about supporting his career or doing what was best for the family. It was about me, what I wanted, what I was building. And it felt good. I didn't realize until that point how long it had been since I'd made a decision based purely on what I wanted for my future. And the moment I did that, even through the fear, even through the uncertainty, I felt something lift. Just a little. That's what liberation looked like in April. Not total freedom. Not everything figured out. Just those small, brave steps forward. But let me be clear, there was still a lot of weight I was carrying that month. Heavy, painful, relentless weight. Mediation. It was dragging on. Session after session, 3 hours at a time, going in circles, trying to split up 24 years of a shared life with someone who didn't even feel familiar anymore. We were dividing everything, finances, property, parenting time, and I think that was the part that hurt the most. Not the money, not even the house. It was the time, because it meant we were now putting in writing the fact that I wouldn't have my kids every Christmas, that there would be holidays where my house would be quiet, that I'd wake up some mornings to silence, not their laughter, that my traditions, my memories, my moments would now be shared, split, divided. That broke something in me. I had always been the one who held everything together. I was the steady one, the soft place, the default parent. And now I had to hand over parts of that, because that's what the law required. And while he was talking about fair and equal, I was sitting there feeling like I was losing pieces of myself. And yet, even with all of that swirling around, I could feel something shifting, because I wasn't hoping anymore. I wasn't waiting for him to come back. I wasn't checking my phone thinking maybe he'd say he missed me. I had finally stopped waiting, and I had finally started wondering what life could look like without him in it. And that was liberating. It was terrifying, but at the same time, it was also liberating. Journal reflection. You left me at my weakest and thought I would just give up. But what you really did was create the strongest version of me. The version of me that no longer needs you or anyone else to pick up the pieces. I picked up all the pieces, put them back together, and created someone who will never need you again. That was where I was in April, still aching, still tired, still navigating the never-ending meetings and conversations and financial stress, but starting very quietly to believe in myself again, and maybe even starting to dream again. If I had to describe mediation in one word, it would be draining. Every session felt like another 3-hour marathon of trying to find logic in something that had completely fallen apart. By April, it was like the process had taken on a life of its own. Round after round of paperwork, numbers, schedules, signatures, and discussions that went in circles. We'd sit down, talk in loops, wear each other out, and walk away with almost nothing finalized. The mediator would look at both of us and say, "Okay, I think that's enough for today. We'll pick it back up next week." But I didn't want to wait until next week. I wanted it done. I was so tired of living in limbo, tired of not knowing what was mine, what was his, what was next, tired of everything being tangled together while emotionally we were already miles apart. I remember sitting in that mediation room thinking I could sit here for 16 hours straight if it meant I'd never have to do this again. That's how desperate I was for closure. But closure doesn't come easily, not when both people want different outcomes. And I want to be really honest about something here. It wasn't just calm and collected conversations. There were moments where it got heated, moments where the tension boiled over, where words were sharp and emotions were raw, whether it was coming from him or from me. Because that's just the truth of it. When you're sitting across from someone you once loved, someone you built an entire life and family with, and you're being asked to split it all in half, there is no winning. We both wanted what we thought we deserved. We both felt like we were getting screwed. And honestly, we probably both were. He felt like he was being taken advantage of. I felt like I was being left with the short end of everything I had helped build. And maybe that's just how it goes. No one walks out of a mediation room with a trophy. You walk out with less than what you hoped for and more pain than you expected. And that's when I started to notice it again. The patterns, the stalling, the vague language, the missing paperwork, the unanswered questions, the delay. Not because he wanted to drag it out. I don't think he did. I truly believe he wanted it to be over too, but he wanted it to be over on his terms, in a way that protected him, in a way where he wouldn't have to give more than he wanted to. And deep down, I knew this would happen. I called it because I knew who he was. I had known all along. And watching it all unfold, watching the shadiness creep in through the cracks, it didn't shock me. It just confirmed what my gut already knew. You could see it even in our messages. Short responses, delays, excuses. I'd ask for something and he'd tell me he sent it when he didn't. I'd ask about paperwork and it would suddenly be not ready yet. There was always a reason, always a shift, always a fog. And maybe he wasn't trying to be cruel. Maybe he was just trying to protect himself the only way he knew how. But still, it made me feel small, invisible, frustrated, because while I was trying to move things forward, he was doing everything he could to make sure it happened on his terms. And I was just tired of having to fight this hard to get what I knew I had earned. And that's when something in me shifted. I started to stand my ground. I started to fight for myself, not in a screaming match, not in some dramatic explosion, but with quiet resolve, because I wasn't going to be the easy one anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who folded. I had spent 24 years putting everyone else first. Not anymore. I was fighting for myself. I was fighting to be seen, not just as the wife who stood beside him for 2 decades, but as the woman who built our life just as much as he did. The woman who sacrificed her own dreams to keep everything afloat. The woman who never stopped showing up. So yeah, I stood my ground. I didn't let him push me around. I didn't let him minimize what I brought to the table, because I know what I did and I know what I deserve. There was even a moment later in another session when my attorney told me, "I wish more clients stood up for themselves like you do." And I held on to that because that was the kind of woman I was becoming. Eventually, I couldn't sit across from him anymore. I requested separate rooms. I needed space, not just physically, but emotionally. So we sat in 2 different rooms, and our mediator became the middleman, walking our words back and forth like fragile pieces of glass. It wasn't ideal, but it worked because the distance gave me clarity and the silence gave me space to process what I had known all along, but hadn't wanted to believe. Journal reflection. I thought we were meant to be forever through the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, but at my lowest, just when I needed you most, you decided I wasn't meeting your needs. You found someone else to meet them instead of helping me at my lowest point in our years together. I poured 24 years into meeting your needs, and when I finally needed something from you, you left. But I didn't give up. I looked within and found everything I ever needed. So yeah, mediation was long, it was messy, it was painful, but it was also revealing. Because with every delayed signature, every missing form, every excuse, I stopped seeing the version of him I had once loved. And I started seeing the version of me I was becoming. Someone who knows her worth, someone who protects her peace, someone who fights for what matters, and someone who no longer needs permission to move forward. Oh boy, the dating scene. If mediation was draining, then stepping into the dating world again after 25 years, it was disorienting. Like being dropped into a foreign country without a map or a translator, and everyone speaking in acronyms, emojis, and expectations you don't even recognize. Let me back up just a little. I hadn't even planned on dating yet. I wasn't out there looking for love. I wasn't trying to fill a void. Honestly, I didn't even know what I was doing. But at that point, by April, we had come to terms on everything in mediation. The parenting plan, the financials, the house, everything. We had wrapped it all up, and it was supposed to be done. The divorce was scheduled to be finalized by the end of May. So in my mind, that chapter was closed, or at least closing, and that's the only reason I decided to date, because I truly believed the marriage was officially ending. I thought it was safe to move forward, to breathe a little, to maybe start imagining what life might look like on the other side. So I dipped my toe in, opened Facebook dating, tried to be open, tried to be brave. And then, right after I had taken that first scary step into this new world, he backed out. After all the agreements, after all the hours, after all the emotional labor of finally letting go, he changed his mind, and the mediation process had to continue. Everything I thought was done wasn't. And that left me in this confusing, murky place where I was technically still married, but also starting to explore something new. And let me tell you, that was hard. Not because I felt guilty, but because it made everything feel messy and unfinished again. And to make it even more confusing, dating in 2024 is wild. It's not what I remembered. It's not casual. It's not simple. It's apps and swiping and strangers asking for your location before they even know your last name. It's people wanting to move fast, way too fast. But I'll never forget that first date. It wasn't dinner, candles, and butterflies. It wasn't even at night. It was a lunch/brunch date, something casual, low-key, neutral ground. And honestly, I was terrified. I was texting my friends beforehand like, what do I wear? What do I say? How do I act like a human again? I told him straight up that I had been married for over 20 years, that this was my first real date in decades, that I was nervous and unsure and still trying to figure it all out. And he was kind, respectful, but that didn't make it any less awkward. Because sitting across from someone new when your heart is still tender and your identity still feels like it's in pieces, it's not romantic. It's vulnerable. I sat there smiling and chatting, but part of me felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching myself try to play the role of single woman, when I still didn't even fully know who I was on my own yet. Between April and July, I went on 2, maybe 3 dates. Not many, but enough to realize something really important. I wasn't ready. Each person I met wanted something serious. They wanted to text every day, talk constantly, start planning the next date immediately, and I just couldn't. I was still rebuilding, still studying for my real estate license, still in mediation sessions, still helping my kids navigate this new normal, still figuring out what I liked, what I wanted, who I even was. I wasn't ready to be someone's anything because I was still learning how to be mine. So I stepped back, not because I failed, but because I knew I had more healing to do, more peace to find, more space to hold for myself. And even though I didn't find love out there, I found something more important. Clarity. I learned that I'm the prize. I'm not desperate. I'm not broken. I'm not too much. And I'm definitely not too late. I'm worthy of something real, something peaceful, something mutual and grounded and safe. And until I find that, if I ever do, I'm okay with loving me first. There's this part of me now that craves peace above everything else. In any future relationship, if there is one, I don't want chaos. I don't want guilt tripping or games or resentment. I want a partnership rooted in freedom, not fear. I want to be with someone who's confident enough to let me be fully me, who has their own life and lets me have mine, but chooses me anyway, every day. And if that doesn't come, I'm okay alone because I'm learning how to show up for myself in ways I never have before. Journal reflection. After the initial heartbreak, I realized I'm glad you left because when you left, I found me, the me I had been missing all these years. Dating after 25 years wasn't exciting. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't romantic in the way people want it to be. But it was brave. It was honest. It was necessary because it reminded me that there's life after loss, that there's possibility after pain, and that I don't need a partner to be whole. Who am I becoming? You know, after that first date, and even after the second and third, I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel lit up or giddy. What I felt was unsettled, not because of the people I met, but because it forced me to sit with a question that I'd been avoiding for months. Who am I now? Who am I when I'm not someone's wife? Who am I when I'm not the fixer, the supporter, the one in the background making everything run smoothly? For so long, my identity was wrapped up in us, in being a wife, in being the mom who kept it all together, in being the co-owner of a business, the one who did the books, kept the house clean, planned the holidays, made the phone calls, signed the permission slips, and sacrificed her own dreams to build a life that looked solid from the outside. But after 24 years of giving and giving and giving, who was I really? That's the question I started to answer in April. I was becoming someone new, and yet not new at all. More like I was unburying the version of me that had been quieted for years. The one who had dreams, the one who had a voice, the one who could take up space without apologizing for it. And a big part of that was deciding to take real estate classes. It may sound small from the outside, just a new career path, just a class. But for me, it was everything. It was a statement. It was me saying, I'm doing something for myself. I'm building something for my future. I'm not waiting around for anyone to save me. I studied harder than I've studied in years. Late nights, early mornings, note cards everywhere. I hadn't taken a test like that in over 2 decades, and I passed on the first try, both the state and the national. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself, not because someone else validated me, not because someone told me good job, but because I earned it, because I showed up for myself, because I proved to myself that I could do hard things. And somewhere between the awkward dates and the real estate exams, between the silence in my house and the chaos in my head, I started to feel something shift. I was gaining confidence, real confidence, not the kind that comes from being needed by someone else, but the kind that comes from standing on your own and realizing you're not just surviving, you're starting to rise. I started looking in the mirror and seeing more than tired eyes and grief. I saw resilience. I saw grit. I saw a woman who had been knocked down, but who got up anyway. And I realized I am the prize. I am the soft place. I am the fire. I am the steady. I am the storm. And I don't need someone else to choose me to know that I'm worthy. I just needed to start choosing myself. And even now, I'm still figuring her out. This version of me. She's a little scared. She's a little tender. She still sometimes gets overwhelmed by legal documents and to-do lists. But she's also showing up. She's starting businesses. She's recording podcasts. She's mothering her boys through one of the hardest seasons of their lives. And she's not giving up. There was this moment in April where it all just clicked. I thought to myself, if I want to build something, I can. If I want to go back to school, I can. If I want to make a new life for myself and my boys, I can. No one is stopping me. No one is holding me back. There's no one standing in the doorway anymore telling me I'm dreaming too big. The only thing that could ever stop me now is me. And I'm done holding myself back. Journal reflection. You are the only one who holds the power to change this situation. You will find happiness and peace. You have to believe it and make it happen. You are so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. Believe in yourself and you will get there, day by day. If I could go back to April and talk to that version of me, the one standing in front of the mirror after that first brunch date, trying to figure out what it all meant. The one driving home in silence, wondering if this is just what dating feels like now. The one balancing courage and confusion, strength and softness in the same breath. I would grab her by the hands, look her in the eyes, and say, "You are doing amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're figuring it out. You're standing up for yourself. You're putting your boys first and finally putting yourself right there with them. You are going to be okay. Not just okay, you are going to thrive. Because this month, I finally started to see that becoming me again wasn't about going back to who I was before. It was about creating someone stronger, softer, wiser, more grounded, more joyful, more peaceful, someone who isn't afraid to start over, someone who isn't afraid to take up space, someone who knows her worth without needing to prove it to anyone else. And that's who I'm becoming. Every day, with every step, with every broken piece I pick up and decide to keep. Because I may not have chosen this story, but I am choosing what comes next. Looking back and looking forward. Looking back on April, I don't think I realized at the time just how important this month would be. It wasn't the most dramatic month. There weren't any big blow-ups or shocking discoveries. It was quieter than the months before it. But in that quiet, things shifted. I started to take my life back. Piece by piece, step by step, not because anyone handed me permission, but because I finally decided I didn't need it. I was tired of waiting, tired of being stuck in the in-between, tired of measuring my worth by how much I could hold for everyone else. So I stopped waiting for closure to be handed to me, and I started creating it for myself. This month moved me forward in ways that might not be obvious from the outside, but they changed everything for me. I passed my real estate tests. I started making real moves toward my career. I showed up in every mediation session, even when I was exhausted and numb. I protected my boys. I protected myself. And I didn't let fear or loneliness stop me from trying something new. I went on a date. I answered questions about myself I hadn't thought about in years. I laughed a little. I squirmed a lot. And I reminded myself that I'm still alive, still growing, still learning how to live a life that's mine and mine alone. That matters. Even if it didn't come with fireworks or applause, it still matters. Because this month, I learned that healing doesn't always look like breakthroughs. Sometimes it looks like showing up to mediation and not crumbling. Sometimes it looks like taking a test and passing. Sometimes it looks like going to lunch with someone new and realizing you're not ready and being okay with that. What I'm proud of. I don't think anyone else could fully understand how hard it was to do the things I did in April, but I know, and I'm proud of myself for trying, for stepping into new spaces, for not giving up, even when it would have been easier to stay where I was. This was the month I took chances, a chance on building a new career, a chance on seeing what was out there in the dating world, a chance on myself. That's what I'm most proud of. Not the outcome, but the courage to try. A message to myself and to you. If I could go back and tell April me anything, I'd say you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. You just have to take the next right step. You just have to breathe through the hard moments. You just have to keep choosing yourself over and over again until it feels natural again. And if you're listening to this right now and you're somewhere in your own month 9, in that messy, confusing middle where nothing feels finished, but everything feels fragile, I want you to hear this. You're not behind. You're not failing. You're not too broken to start over. You are becoming. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's frustrating and exhausting and full of questions, but you're doing it anyway. And that makes you powerful. Final journal reflection. I needed something from you that you couldn't give me. Instead, you abandoned me and left me stranded to find what I needed deep inside myself. Although you left me at my worst and betrayed me when I needed you most, I hope you find the peace and happiness you are looking for. And thank you for showing me I can dig myself out of the depths of darkness and stand on my own 2 feet without you. So that's April, month 9, the month where things weren't fully over, but where I stopped waiting for someone else to end it. The month where I stopped hoping for who he used to be and started showing up for who I was becoming. The month I let go just enough to catch a glimpse of the life that's still waiting for me. And maybe most importantly, the month I realized I'm not just going to survive this, I'm going to rebuild something beautiful from it. If this episode spoke to you, if you're in your own version of April, trying to untangle what was and figure out what's next, I hope this reminded you that you're not alone, and I hope you'll share this episode with someone else who might need it too. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Momma Drama Trauma, or subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts for more episodes like this one. As always, thank you for letting me share my story with you. And remember, you are strong, you are worthy, and your story matters. Until next time, take care of you.